veteran-owned subcontractor utilization bid incentive. Second, the veteran-owned small business enterprise joint venture and veteran-owned business enterprise bid incentive. And third, the business enterprises owned or operated by people with disabilities utilization incentive. And after that, briefly go over the city certification programs as they relate to BEPD and VBE firms. Next slide, please. So the people in attendance today may already be aware of this, but I did want to give a brief overview of bid incentives generally. When the Department of Procurement Services advertises a specification, the specification will list the applicable incentives. The incentives do vary based on type of contract, so we definitely encourage bidders to pay careful attention to what is included. The bidders will be required to submit affidavits and, in some cases, specified documentation in order to be considered for the incentive. And if eligible, the bid amount is reduced by the amount of the incentive for evaluation purposes only. It will not affect the ultimate contract value. Next slide, please. So of the three incentives I mentioned, the first one I want to go over briefly is the veteran-owned subcontractor bid incentive. The idea and the goal is to encourage the use of veteran-owned subcontractors on construction projects. So the key points to keep in mind here: the bidder must use city-certified veteran-owned small local businesses as subcontractors, and it is specified city-certified veteran-owned businesses. The amount of the incentive is tiered based on the amount of the commitment measured in terms of percentage of total contract value. I've listed here the precise numbers for your review, but if the commitment is 1 to 16% of the total contract value, the incentive is 0.5% of the base bid. If the commitment is 17 to 32%, the incentive is 1%. If the commitment is 33 to 49% of the contract value, the incentive amount is 1.5% of the base bid. And if the commitment is 50% or greater of the contract value, the incentive is 2% of the base bid. If you would like to read more about that in the city's municipal code, the citation is below. Next slide, please. So this second incentive is also related to veteran-owned businesses. It is a little more involved. This is designed to increase contracting opportunities and participation by small local veteran-owned business enterprises and eligible joint ventures that are made up of small local businesses and also veteran-owned business enterprises. So to sort of go over the broad strokes of this, the two ways that a bidder can qualify for this is just to by itself be a veteran-owned small local business certified by the city, or to participate in a joint venture where some of the members are small local businesses and some of the members are veteran-owned businesses. If applying as a joint venture, I do want to note that the joint venture member that is the veteran-owned business can rely on multiple types of veteran-related certification, state, federal, city, and county. And if anyone would like more details about those, I can provide more information afterwards. But if the bidder wants to qualify without being in a joint venture, it has to be a city certified small local veteran-owned business. Unlike the last incentive I mentioned, this one is for construction and non-construction contracts. Also, unlike the last one I mentioned, it's not a tiered incentive. If the bidder qualifies, they get a 5% incentive. Otherwise, they do not get an incentive. And finally, I do want to note that this incentive cannot be stacked or combined with the veteran-owned subcontractor bid incentive. So if there is a construction contract that has both of these incentives listed, they can't be combined and stacked. Next slide, please. The third incentive I want to mention is not veteran-owned business related. It is the business enterprises owned or operated by people with disabilities incentive. The key points to remember for this one are that this is designed to increase contracting opportunities for the BEPD firms. This can be applied for both by the prime contractor being a BEPD firm and also by proposing the use of subcontractors that are BEPD firms. With the bid, BEPD certification letters must be provided. The incentive applies to both construction and non-construction contracts. And much like with the veteran-owned subcontractor incentive, this one is tiered. The more participation that is proposed by BEPD firms, the larger the incentive measured as a percentage of the base bid. I have listed the numbers below for anyone that would like to review, and certainly I could provide more information about that afterwards if anyone would like. Next slide, please. And this, again, may be known to the people participating here today, but generally speaking about all bid incentives, after award of a contract, the bidder may be required to submit documentation either over the course of the life of the contract or at contract closeout, demonstrating that the contractor was complying with the bid incentive requirements throughout the life of the contract. And if it turns out at the end of the contract period that the bidder was not complying with what they stated in their affidavit, there may be a fine of up to 3 times the amount of the incentive granted, or a finding of non-responsibility for future contracting opportunities. Next slide, please. So up to this point, I have been talking about bid incentives. Going forward, I want to talk about the city certification programs as they relate to this topic. I have listed these 6 types of certification that the city certifies in. In bold, I have noted the 2 that are relevant for this presentation. The city does certify BEPD and VBE firms. Below that, I've listed sort of very broad but common eligibility requirements for a certification program. The businesses must be at least 51% owned or and controlled by, in the case of VBE certification, veterans. In the case of BEPD certification, individuals with disabilities. The businesses must be small and they must be independent and viable, which basically means they're already going concerns and aren't dependent on non-qualifying firms to operate. Next slide, please. So to try to cut through all of the really nitty-gritty information about certification, I put some quick bullet points about what the relevance of being certified in these areas is as it relates to city contracts. So for BEPD certification, when the city certifies you, you can use that certification to apply for the bid incentive I discussed. But I did want to stress, unlike with some of our certification programs, there aren't contract compliance goals for BEPD firms at this point. So the certification, at least as it's relevant for these purposes, is used for applying for the bid incentive. In contrast, for the VBE certification, not only can that certification be used for applying to the veteran-related bid incentives I mentioned, but in fairly recent news, the city, by ordinance, has a VBE pilot program where up to the city can set up to 1% contract-specific participation goals for VBE firms in circumstances where there are at least 3 city-certified VBEs in the areas of specialty that are involved in the specification. Fairly recently, that program was extended and reestablished through April 30th, 2021. So just to quickly summarize, although the BEPD certification is used for bid incentive purposes and not for compliance goals, the VBE certification can be used for the bid incentives and, where applicable, also for meeting compliance goals. Next slide, please. So that is the end of my presentation. I am, of course, very happy to answer any questions at the end of this presentation, because I'm aware that was a lot of information in a short period of time, but I'm happy to clarify or explain anything that may be of interest to the attendees. And with that, I will hand that over to John for his portion of the presentation. Thank you.
John, you have a PowerPoint presentation too, correct?
I do.
And you should have control right about now.
Okay. Yep, I am seeing screen sharing, so let me activate that. And here we go. I think that go ahead and launch this. Okay, so thank you all, and go ahead and jump in with a little
John,
bit.
just real quickly, we're seeing two screens.
Okay, let me
we can get it down to just one.
Let me see.
I think it's in the, well, you might know your system a little bit better than me, but it's in the display settings. You have two monitors, probably.
Yeah. And I wonder,
can we just use the one?
I am trying to figure out how to get to just the one. You're seeing two screens?
Yeah. We see the note screen and then the regular screen.
Oh, you know what? Let me try changing that. Okay, is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. So, I'd like to thank everyone for inviting Elite Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Business Network to participate in today's event. And a little background on myself and Elite. So I serve as the National Secretary and Illinois Chapter President for Elite. Our chapter has been around since about 2010. In 2011, we hosted our national convention in Chicago, and happy to say that we're bringing the event back to Chicago next year. And I'll get into a little more information on that in a bit. In terms of Elite's purpose, this really boils down to a few key areas. I'll talk about these in more detail, but it boils down to advocacy, so working with policymakers and the community as a whole to increase opportunities for veteran-owned businesses and their partners, education through events that we do, bringing in subject matter experts to talk with our members. The Illinois chapter hosts meetings throughout the year. And we actually have an event coming up in early December that I'll be sharing information about that includes some subject matter experts who are going to be talking about leveraging diversity certifications and also ownership considerations with regard to diverse businesses, and in particular, veteran-owned businesses. And the third thing is just creating opportunities for our members, hosting networking events, doing matchmaking. It's often the case that a large company will reach out to me asking if I can help connect them with a veteran-owned business. I'm always happy to connect them with members that provide work in that area. So a little bit about the Illinois chapter. As I mentioned, we've been around since about 2010. We've grown to become the largest chapter in the country. Elite was founded in San Diego over 20 years ago. They have several chapters out there and at other places across the country. But again, the things that we've done center around advocacy and networking and education. We've been very happy to work with the state of Illinois and city of Chicago on some programs for the veteran-owned business community. those of you who are familiar with the Veteran Business Program might know that one part of getting certified with the state's Veteran Business Program is the ability to provide a VA certification for a streamlined process. That's something that we are directly involved in addition to initiating that long time ago. And we continue to work with the state on improvements to that program. We've also been happy to be involved in providing input to the programs that were just discussed, such as the Veteran Bid Incentive Programs, Business Enterprise Owned by People with Disabilities Program. We facilitated some things that enabled disabled veteran-owned businesses to participate in the BEPD program. And as I mentioned, our next really big thing is the national convention coming back to Chicago next year. With COVID, we made the decision to postpone from original plans to have it this August. Next year, we're going to be hosting it at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare. And please let me know if anybody would like more information on that, or you can go to sdvobconference.com. So just drilling into some of the details that I talked about. So again, advocacy, one of the big things that we do this nationally. I talked about some examples of things that we've done with the city and in the state of Illinois. Should mention that we are all volunteers. The whole network is comprised of business owners, and those of us who are involved in administrative kinds of roles with Elite, we're doing this on a voluntary basis. So it's because we're very passionate about helping the veteran community. Key goal, of course, for everybody, because we are business owners, is helping businesses to grow either through direct referrals for opportunities, matchmaking, pairing up companies that can team with other diverse companies, or things like the bid incentive programs that were discussed, or just to go after contracts that have veteran-owned business participation goals. And big part of this is key partners, connecting our members with government agencies, connecting them with subcontracting opportunities, and then also highlighting member businesses through things like the directory on Elite's website. I talked a bit about monthly meetings with special guest speakers. For the foreseeable future, we'll be doing these virtually. Hope to get back to the normal routine of hosting our meetings in downtown Chicago. These are hosted at a location right on LaSalle Street, so generally easy for people to get to. And I want to talk a little bit about the national convention. So as I said, this has been bumped back to next August. It's going to be August 11th through the 13th. Key features of the convention are breakout sessions. So we've got a few different tracks with different focus areas. We've got one track focused on government work, another track focused on commercial work, and general business development, things like coaching our members on doing a capabilities presentation. Matchmaking is always popular. This is where we pair up businesses for one-on-one sessions with potential buyers and partners. And how to join Elite is pretty easy. You can go to our website at elitesdvob.org. For disabled veteran-owned businesses, membership is only $60 a year. I've been pleased to see members actually volunteering to donate more money because they see all the value that they get out of being part of our organization. This includes a directory listing, so businesses can be found through search features in our directory. The directory listing includes every detail about the business, contact information, social media links, business profile, areas that it provides services in, and so forth. And the other thing is getting on our mailing list, because we do push out information that we feel is of interest to our members. Today's event is a good example of that, where we've pushed that information out. We've got about 500 companies that have opted in to get this kind of information. So another thing that's just an automatic part of membership, and others can feel free to opt in as well. So with that, I have covered everything that I needed to go over with Elite. Are there any questions that I can help answer?
Well, we're going to take the questions at the end. So we're going to pass it on over to Lori Dittman and from the mayor's office for people with disabilities. And then we'll take the questions, John, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kathy and Jackie, for
One moment, Lori. I don't think they see your presentation. You do have a presentation, right?
No, I don't have any.
Oh,
No.
okay. All righty.
I don't know if you have something else to put up.
Yeah, I do. I will. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stop you.
Sure. Now it's like, oh, she doesn't have one. But I wanted to thank everyone for participating in this workshop. I think both Mitchell and John gave some really good information leading up into the BEPD programs. But I wanted to also give you more information about MOPD and what we do and how the BEPD program fits into this. MOPD was established the same year that the ADA was passed, and so we have a long history in Chicago. Our mission is to promote total access, full participation, and equal opportunity for people with all types of disabilities. Our comprehensive approach to systemic change for people with disabilities include the delivery of direct independent living services, public education awareness about disability issues, accessibility compliance, public policy, and other initiatives with the goal of making Chicago the most accessible and inclusive city in the nation. Additionally, we also provide a lot of disability-related expertise to city departments and city agencies, as well as to private sector companies and nonprofit organizations. What we do overall is our work is to meet the diverse needs of more than 600,000 individuals with disabilities who live, work, and visit Chicago. Just to give you kind of a brief overview of the type of programming we do have, we have information and referral, providing many resources to people with disabilities. Again, accessibility compliance. We have a number of youth programs, disability resources, training where we will mostly go out. We do some internal, but a lot of outside training for private organizations and businesses on more disability awareness and etiquette. We have a number of employment programs. We have independent living programs. We have a very popular OMOD program, which gives $10,000 grants to people to make their homes more accessible. And that's for homeowners and renters. And the public policy unit, which is what I do for MOPD. I wanted to just also give a little more information about the BEPD program, you know, and why we took the route to work closely with the Department of Procurement Services to develop this program. We initially saw this employment unemployment is a big issue in the disability community. So we're always looking at ways in which we can increase those employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And what I think we all know, and certainly everyone participating today, is that small businesses are one of the best ways to increase employment. Small businesses, you know, employ the majority of people in this country. And we thought that by anything we can do to enhance and increase the number businesses owned by people with disabilities, that would in turn also help with the employment issues. So that's what kind of started our path to developing this program. Just to give you a little more detail about the program itself, it targets or those who are eligible for it are for-profit corporations, partnerships, associations, and businesses, individuals with disabilities who want to contract with the city. But one of the ways, and this is different from other programs, is nonprofit corporations can also be certified as BEPDs. There's some conditions by which they need to comply. They are required to pay an hourly wage that is not less than federal minimum wage, and it's not on a piecework basis. And it requires the management and daily business operations to be controlled by one or more people with disabilities, and their corporate purpose must include either directly or indirectly services to individuals with disabilities. So that's something that we struck out as a different approach to really help those nonprofit organizations that are out there that also employ people with disabilities. We also, a couple of years ago, added service disabled veterans to our program as well, to the BEPD program. So that is another group that is able to benefit from the BEPD program. Mitchell beautifully explained the bid incentives, so I won't go into that, but I just wanted to be able to give a little more context to why the city added a BEPD program along with the other certification programs that it offers. And at the end of this, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about it. And again, I thank everyone who's participating today and want to turn it over to Kathy.
Thank you so much, Lori. Thank you for your presentation and your time. Jackie, I think Rodney's got a couple of slides that he's going to share on my behalf. If you can pass the ball to him, that would be great.
He already has. He already has it.
Okay, perfect. You know, we're so grateful to our presenters today to be able to talk about the resources they provide and just how innovative they're being in communicating about opportunities to all of our local business community. We wanted to just really touch on, you know, I know that we want to get to some questions. So I just really at a high level wanted to touch on how do you stay in touch with us and find out about opportunities. You know, you've probably, if you've done any of our other sessions, you've heard about our buying plan. That's a forecast that looks out about 6 quarters for what the city is buying, as well as 14 additional contracting agencies in the region. So this just kind of lets you know ahead of time, you know, what are the opportunities that are coming out, and how can your business prepare for that, or to be on the lookout for that. And Rodney, I think we've got a couple of other slides that talk about how to stay in touch, like the DPS alert, et cetera. Thanks. So I don't know if I'm going to go into this level of detail of like everything that's in the buying plan, but you definitely can see a number of different types of contracting categories. I think the next slide might talk about the fact that you can see what kinds of subcontracting opportunities are available. As we had mentioned, yes, there's 13 additional agencies on top of the city of Chicago in the buying plan. The kinds of information you can find, who's buying it, what department, what kind of contract it is. And that subcontracting category, especially the funding source, is particularly important if you're thinking about getting certified, particularly in the VBE certification, but certainly, you know, in any of the certification types. But if the project is locally funded, if you see that in the buying plan, that means that these certifications, the BEPD and the VEB, can apply. And so, I mean, this takes us, I think the next step is yep, there's a how-to guide also in the buying plan. Rodney, if you can advance to the DPS alert slide. Perfect. Thank you so much. So what we see in the buying plan, then once a week, we send out an email newsletter where you can find out about different events that are happening, either, you know, even with Elite or at the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities. If there's information for your business, we send this out in this DPS alert. We also send out a weekly listing of what is actually advertised and what's on the street. We think this is really important because most projects do list a pre-bid conference. So at the pre-bid conference, you can learn a lot about, you know, what incentives are available. Also, I think I saw a question in the Q&A about, you know, how do you connect with a prime? So for our pre-bid conferences, a takeout list or a list is available of those folks who attend the pre-bid conferences. So you're able to download that or find out that information. And that's another tool for you to use in your business development. Finding out which primes are interested in a particular project can help you as you try to market your business and be a sub to that prime. Like I said, it also at those pre-bid conferences, you learn about you know, what incentives are applicable to this particular project. Next slide, please. Great. So then kind of the third piece for us in terms of communication is following us on our social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, all of these sessions that you're at the vendor fair and beyond are available on our YouTube channel. And we've just recently added LinkedIn, which we hope is another way to bridge the gap of folks, you know, trying to find each other and network, along with, you know, participating in events such as like the great ones Elite puts on, et cetera. So that's just a little very high level of how to stay in touch with us and how you can find out more about upcoming projects and if they, you know, include the incentives, et cetera. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Jackie and try to handle any Q&A that you might have.
All right. We have a host of questions here. So let's get to them. Let's see. All right. What is the best way for, I think it's DCE, to reach out as a certified VBE firm to the lead prime firms pursuing work with VBE goals? Kathy, are you speaking?
Sure, yeah, I'll start. So certainly one of the suggestions I had is, you know, making sure that you follow us, follow those pre-bid conferences to see what is being advertised, to kind of just, you know, plug in and get in the process. You know, another way is to see which prime contractors are working now on our projects. And there's a lot of information that is available on the City of Chicago website, including awarded contracts and then the information for prime contractors, contact information. We do teach another class, actually. Rodney LeBeau, who's our chat moderator today, facilitates that class. That takes you through our website and shows you different like tips and tricks, and not even tips and tricks, but like there's literally thousands of pages of information on our website. And that class will help you navigate it to find out how you can learn which primes are working now and how you can reach out to them and how you can help with your business development goals.
And along with that, Charles N. Anderson is a principal consultant for Landmark Management, and he specifically wants to know, how do veteran-owned businesses hook up with subcontractors and partner with contracting opportunities? Is there a special something that they could do?
So, I mean, I would mirror that advice. And also, I mean, I'd also toss it out to my fellow panelists. You know, John, I don't know if you wanted to kind of jump in here too as well. Like what has your experience been through Elite, like helping folks connect? And that's another.
Sure. So I would say that, as you mentioned, attending pre-bid conferences is a great way to connect directly with potential partners or primes. Beyond that, I know that it's been very effective for our members to participate in different types of events, just doing, there's many diversity events, and some of these also include primes that come out. And think about everything that's happening with the O'Hare project, ORD21. There's a bunch of events with primes that are actually hosting those kinds of things. Events like this one, I'd say more generally, it's good to just start establishing relationships, and I think referrals are another way. For my own business, that's how we find ourselves on other teams.
I'd also like to add, like in addition to the great events Elite has, the city maintains a list of assist agencies, and maybe like Rodney, you can put it in the chat or the Q&A for the group, a list of assist agencies, including Elite. So these are nonprofits or, local chambers of commerce that really work with diverse businesses, and they are continually putting on events. And when we do that weekly newsletter, we will publicize what events are out there in the community. We will also maintain a Google Calendar on our website of like, these are where all the events are, so that you can just see at a glance what everybody's doing. So, I mean, these folks that are on this list, and the website address is chicago.gov/assist agency. So this list of folks, like, we definitely would recommend get on all of their mailing lists, follow them on social media, see what kind of events that they're doing in terms of networking with primes and subs. And like often many of them will actually feature a prime contractor that'll be doing a presentation, and you can go and engage with others to talk about partnering, et cetera. So it's about 40 different organizations that we work with now. So we would definitely encourage you to, plug in with those groups, see what they have going on. And that's another way to meet potential partners.
And Kathy, you might want to talk just briefly about the bid opportunity list, because someone mentioned about Cook County's procurement bid list and is asking if there's a comprehensive link for opportunities in all of Illinois.
There is not a comprehensive list for all of Illinois. In terms of the city of Chicago, we serve 30 city user departments. And if you were listening to the presentation earlier this morning, like, it is definitely important to understand like what an agency buys and also what they don't buy. So there's a couple of things here. One, for the city of Chicago, the bid opportunity list comes out every week with our DPS alert. It's also always updated on I'll give you another link, chicago.gov/bids. That's where the city of Chicago information is located. If you want to work with another government agency, like any of those like 13 that I mentioned that are in the buying plan, when you go to look at the buying plan, which is available on the front page of our website, and Rodney's going to put all these links in there for you, there is a page that says agencies in this book. And we've hyperlinked directly to not their general page, but to the procurement page for that agency. So if you're interested in checking out what the Park District has coming up, or schools, or what have you, whatever agencies in that buying plan, there's a hyperlink to the procurement page of their agency. So that's another way to kind of find directly like where it is. The buying plan itself is kind of the most comprehensive thing we have like in the region, but because all these agencies have separate purchasing authority by law, they do their purchasing, separately, but like it's all kind of packaged in that buying plan.
And this person says, I'm certified as a service disability veteran-owned small business with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Does the city of Chicago offer reciprocity with Veteran Affairs?
Sure. So I believe that you can use some of that certification documentation in some of your certification application. But when you are VBE certified by the city of Chicago and want to take advantage of some of these programs, you also have to meet the criteria of being a veteran, but also of the local certification standards of the city. So we certify in a 6-county region. There's also the particular size standards that the city is bound by. So there's a number of other elements. So there is not a direct reciprocity, but some of that documentation, could be transferable. And when you do your certification, and certainly happy to follow up with you offline, and like put you in touch with a certification officer who can go through your particular situation and help you understand what additional information is needed.
And Kathy, if I can piggyback on that, unless things have changed, I also understand that the VA's disabled veteran-owned business certification can be used for access to the BEPD program to demonstrate disability. Is that still the case?
Thank you, John.
Yes, this is Lori, and that is one of the ways in which be certified as a BEPD disabled service disabled veteran. So we use that, or we use if someone is certified as with the state program with a disability rate of, I think 10%. I would have to double check that. So there's a couple ways in which that certification can happen.
Do want to add?
Oh, I'm sorry, John, were you saying something?
No, I'm sorry. This was Mitchell. So
Mitchell, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the BEPD definition includes state certified firms and also firms certified by the city. But I did want to add for the federal VA certification, although there's not direct reciprocity, as Kathy mentioned, when I was discussing that 5% eligible joint venture incentive, if bidder is going forward as a joint venture, the veteran-owned portion of that joint venture can rely on the federal certification letter. That's assuming, though, that they're JVing with a qualifying local business. But I did want to flag that. Thanks.
Okay. And there's a question that says, we are certified through the State of Illinois Central Management Services as a PBE, persons with disability owned business enterprise. Will the city reciprocate the state's PBE certification?
So generally speaking, and Mitchell, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here. So just generally speaking, regarding reciprocity, the city has reciprocity with Cook County. So and it does not directly with the state of Illinois. So there are a number of other checks that have to happen. So I mean, I think there's the documentation that was provided for you to receive your certification at the state of Illinois would be used in support of a certification at the city of Chicago. But there would be additional standards, again, such as where you're located geographically and some size standards that aren't exactly equal. So, and Lori, maybe too, if I jump in, if there's, I don't know how, MOPD does a review to assure that the business is owned by a person with a disability. So I don't know if the state certification is part of, qualifies for that review or kind of where that fits into the process. But it isn't necessarily a straight reciprocity, and that, like the other things that are requirements for the City of Chicago certification, also have to be verified, such as geography, size standards, etc. You're on.
Just to add to that, I mean, MOPD's role in the BEP program is to review the Schedule Gs, and that's another part that's different than the other certification programs. Is the Schedule Gs are an affidavit of disability, and those get signed and filled out by a physician. Some of that can vary by documentation from the VA or the state certification. So it can vary a little bit with regard to the service disabled veteran portion of that, but everything else does require a Schedule G, which is an affidavit for disability. And we do use the ADA's definition of disability. So it's a disability that would affect a major life activity. And those are the things that we would look at for eligibility in the program.
Thank you so much for that. And for those of you that are wondering if there's going to be a recording or if the decks can be shared, the answer to your question is yes. You can find that at www.chicago.gov/vendor fair and look under the update, the red update sign, and click on this link and you will see all of the PowerPoints there and the recordings there. The last question we have is, will the city of Chicago eventually have veteran participation requirements similar to WBE and MBE to align with other organizations such as the Tollway and the Capital Development Board?
So I'll start, but maybe Mitchell, you can help me with this response. Mitchell presented some slides on the VBE pilot program that's happening right now at the city of Chicago, and that's our first step. And it all is based on the availability of the firms that are veteran-owned firms that are certified in order to be able to determine, what the next step for participation could be at the city of Chicago. Mitchell, I don't know if you wanted to add on to that.
Yes, so the addition of veteran participation requirements is relatively recent. And so, and it also, according to the pilot program established by ordinance, says that the city can only establish a contract-specific goal if there are 3 or more certified firms in the areas of specialty involved in the project. So the upshot of that is there haven't been VBE goals really in the past, but going forward, as more firms are certified and as more projects are advertised, I think that you can expect to see more projects with contract-specific participation goals for VBE firms.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's definitely this data-driven decision making. So that's why we encourage as many firms to pursue certification as possible, and we try to do as much outreach on those topics, and working with groups like Elite and others in order to share information about what are the benefits. And the more veteran-owned firms we have certified, the more that we are able to incorporate them into the contracting opportunities in the city of Chicago. So definitely, please, share information about this. Stay in touch with us, ask us questions, share with your other colleagues or other businesses that that could benefit with this certification, and we're happy to continue to provide information, education, and assistance along the way.
So this is at the end of our session for today, and I just wanted our guest speakers to just go around, and if you have any final words you wanted to add, something you may have not said that you wanted to say. So I'll start with Lori Dittman. You're on mute, Lori.
Thank you for this opportunity. One thing I did want to mention with regard to the BEPD program is often, I think you're seeing a lot of private companies and industries doing, more to achieve, diversity goals in terms of who they're procuring with. And one thing that we've heard about is private companies not knowing, just what to do in terms of knowing who's eligible as a disabled-owned business. And so our BEPD program, even though it's, it doesn't just have to be used for contracting with the city, it can also be used as evidence of a business being owned and operated by a person with a disability. So that is something I wanted to point out. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go with John.
Yes, again, thank you for the opportunity for me to represent Elite Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Business Network at this event. Just one point that I'd like to reinforce that came up deals with the importance of certification, and I'd like to cast that in a slightly different light. You know, getting certified is not only something that benefits the individual business that is getting certified, but it benefits the community as a whole. We've got this, you know, rising tides lift all boats kind of thing that I've seen come out of conversations with a wide range of agencies that talk about the importance of increasing that competitive pool of certified firms that does enable them to do things like setting goals on contracts and so forth. So certainly certification is key in a lot of ways, and I'm always happy to point companies in the right direction when they need help along those lines. And thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you, John. And we'll go to Mitchell next.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I did want to quickly state, if we're time limited, I see, at least in my chat, a few extra questions that appear to pertain to my portion of the presentation. So if it's not possible to go over them now, is there a way
No, you can go over them. Go ahead and answer them.
Okay, sure. I'll try to be brief. So I see one question regarding BEPD eligibility requirements. How is small business defined? Is the status self-declared or officially determined? So the city has an established business size threshold that is adjusted annually, and that limit is posted online on our website. This year, that limit, as measured by gross receipts averaged over the previous 3 fiscal years, is $40,577,886.10. And as to whether that's self-declared or officially determined, it's sort of a combination. We'll look to the bid incentive affidavit to see whether the boxes are checked in the way that you would expect, but the chief procurement officer can always request additional info to verify the size of the business. So that's a good question. I see a question for BEPD and veteran bid incentives that apply to construction. This is from John. Construction and non-construction, how is this incentive applied to RFPs like technology professional services where pricing is only one factor? So that answer varies depending on the incentive. And I think this will go with another, I think the last question that I saw. So for the veteran-owned subcontractor incentive, that is strictly construction. It doesn't apply to the sort of quote-unquote construction-related, IT or engineering or any services like that. It's very strictly related to construction projects. For the eligible joint venture incentive I mentioned, the DPS rules do have an illustrative example of how that works, but how it basically works is that instead of lowering your base bid, it provides a boost to your evaluation score. However, I do want to stress that since there are certain instances, especially depending on funding source, where we're not allowed to put in incentives with local components like the eligible joint venture incentive, it's entirely possible that you will not see the incentive in the RFP or RFQ where you are reviewing, depending on the circumstances. So as I stated earlier, it is very important to carefully check every solicitation opportunity. There should be a checklist at the front that will have, among other things, all the incentives that apply to that specification. So it's important to carefully check. So that's a good question. Thank you for that. And I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything else. And then the last question I think I covered. Does the veteran-owned subcontractor incentive also apply to engineering, not just construction, such as phase 1 and 2 portions of projects? And the answer is it applies only to construction, but the eligible joint venture veteran-related incentive applies to non-construction projects as well as construction.
I'm sorry. Are you done?
There's one more. Someone asked, what was the website you mentioned where the small business measurements are published? So I can, is it possible for me to put that link in the Q&A section, or should I put it in the chat?
Yes, put it in the Q&A section. And if you have questions that weren't answered, please put them in Q&A because we can get them answered for you and then we can get back with you. But everyone can see what the answers, what the questions are when you do that. And did you have one more or something else?
That was it. I put, I don't think it's showing up, but I think I put the link. It showed up in my Q&A. I'm hoping everyone can see that. But I put the link in that has a variety of documentation links. The one in question that I was referring to is called the gross receipts limit. But there's a good variety of information there as well. And not to pile on with too much information, but it's important to carefully review all the requirements for whatever you are looking into, because depending on the circumstances, sometimes size limits for the city are defined by referring to the Small Business Administration limits, and sometimes they are defined by referring to the link I just sent. So it's important to carefully pay attention to that. But I hope this was useful. Thank you, everyone.
It was. Thank you, Mitchell. And Kathy.
Sure, of course. So thanks to everyone for being part of this session. I want to, there's a couple of things. One of the benefits of certification, and is, as I believe John mentioned, or Lori as well, is we do have a certified firm directory available on our website. So if you do choose to pursue certification with the city, we do have a lot of entities that use that tool to be able to find you. So that's definitely something to check out. You can slice and dice that database by a number of different ways in order to find firms to work on your projects, or, just to see who's out there to potentially partner with. And number two, I really want to give a plug for, we've got, especially here with Mitchell at the end, and all of our panelists, there is a lot of information and we are here to, to help. I want to give a plug for our workshop program. So Jackie runs a great workshop program all year long. We do a deep dive into certification where we can get a lot of these questions answered for you. I believe the next session is December 2nd. So we run a number of different classes about the nitty gritty of certification, as well as like how to do business with the city. So it is subject matter experts from the city of Chicago, as well as our partner organizations. So we certainly encourage everyone to stay in touch with us, to take some of those classes throughout the year, and be able to just engage and get your questions answered. So thank you for the opportunity to present this to you, and we look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, Kathy. And for our participants, thank you for coming today. This concludes this particular session, and I say stay safe, stay well, wash your hands, wear your mask, social distance, and hopefully next year we will be live and in person. If not, I love this virtual thing. So we will make sure we'll come to you either way, but we would like to see you in person. So stay safe and stay well. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to all the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.